Almost 3 miles below this formation of American flying fortresses, there lies Marienburg in East Prussia. Up to this moment, one of the most important cogs in Germany's war machine. The specific target on which this lead bombardier is lining up his bomb sight is the Focke-Wulf 190 plant. Up to this instant, this aircraft factory has been accounting for almost 50% of Germany's total FW-190 fighter assembly.
Bombs away.
Tons of bombs rain down in a tight pattern of destruction. This, remember, is no area attack. It is an assault on one single target, and any bomb that falls outside that target has failed to achieve its purpose. The assembly of fighters in this Focke-Wulf factory has come to a sudden and violent end. To many, the bombing of Germany probably seems to be little more than a series of capricious adventures, one attack unconnected in any way with the one that preceded it or the one that will follow it. It is easy for the average citizen to envision the positions of ground armies because of maps like these, which make the positions of the contesting forces quite clear. It is harder to express so graphically the progress of a bombing program. Yet there is a real line in this battle of Germany, not a geographical front, but an industrial one. In the British Isles, there are the Allied air forces. On the European continent, we have Regensburg, Marienburg, Bremen, Oschersleben, Warnemünde, and Kassel. These are the major German fighter assembly plants, and as such are actually the center of Germany's industrial defense line. However, these are only the places where the aircraft is assembled into the finished fighting machine. Component parts for German fighters are made at Anklam. Here's a real line in this battle of Germany, not a geographical front, but an industrial one. In the British Isles, there are the Allied air forces. On the European continent, we have Regensburg, Marienburg, Bremen, Oschersleben, Warnemünde, and Kassel. These are the major German fighter assembly plants, and as such are actually the center of Germany's industrial defense line. However, these are only the places where the aircraft is assembled into the finished fighting machine. Component parts for German fighters are made at Anklam, the Weserflugzeugbau works at Bremen, the great Hedderheim propeller works near Frankfurt, the aircraft tire factory at Hanover, the CAM ball bearing plant at Paris, and the ball bearing factories at Schweinfurt. Obviously, an assembly plant can't operate if other plants aren't building the parts from which the enemy planes will be assembled. Hulls produced 29% of all German synthetic rubber production and is in fact responsible for 18% of her entire supply of rubber, natural or synthetic. At Bochum, there's a great steel plant producing high-grade aviation steel. Herøya, up in Norway, is a great producer of aluminum and magnesium, metals which figure importantly in aircraft production. At Ham, there are great railroad marshalling yards, having a capacity of 10,000 freight cars a day. Much of the tonnage handled here is closely connected with the manufacture, assembly, maintenance, and repair of enemy aircraft. And so it is all over Germany and occupied Europe. Everywhere there are plants and installations that contribute directly or indirectly to the making of German aircraft. Industrial bastions which must first be ripped apart before the enemy's armies can be destroyed. The smashing blows by the Allied air forces at Hulst, Herøya, Regensburg, Schweinfurt, Hanover, and Frankfurt have had the result of piercing the German industrial line to the extent of 37.5% of estimated single-engine fighter production in September of 1943. If this rate of drop continues, there can be only one result: the eventual disappearance of the Luftwaffe as a defensive force. But these attacks have had other far-reaching effects. For instance, in January of 1943, just when the 8th Bomber Command had started daylight attacks against Germany proper, 42% of the German fighter strength was concentrated in Western Europe, 33% of it in Russia, and 25% in the Mediterranean area. After 10 months of American bombers appearing by day over Germany, the figures line up more like this. On the Russian front, 19%. In the Mediterranean area, 12%. And in Western Europe, 69%. Germany thought it was urgent enough to withdraw fighters from two important theaters, all in a vain attempt to save their crumbling industry from the grim, destructive blows of the British-American bomber offensive. That is why the Battle of Germany is being fought. Now we come to the problem: how are the targets selected? And what enormous effort is necessary for the 10 or 15 minutes that our air task forces will be over any given target? The daylight bombing offensive against Germany is the responsibility of the 8th Air Force. Under the 8th Air Force are the 8th Bomber Command, the 8th Fighter Command, and the 8th Air Service Command, all of whom contribute to every bombing mission. But it is the Bomber Command which is charged with the actual destruction of the selected targets. The Bomber Command, with which this picture is primarily concerned, is divided into 3 divisions. Each division has a number of combat wings. Each combat wing, in turn, has 3 groups. This is the chain of command. Since the operations which we are to follow, there have been some organizational changes, but they are principally changes of nomenclature and have not affected the broad strategical and tactical purposes of the organization. For instance, what is referred to as Bomber Command in this picture is now the 8th Air Force. Weather is the greatest single enemy of the 8th Bomber Command, for here is to be found the most changeable, treacherous weather in the world. To keep the most accurate possible check on weather conditions all over Europe, the RAF has established vast communication and reporting systems. Weather planes such as this Mosquito and our own B-17s are continually in the air in an effort to know in advance what the weather will be over Europe and the United Kingdom. Men like this supply a major portion of the data from which 8 main weather maps of Europe and of the United Kingdom are drawn each day. In addition, there are 4 upper air maps and 8 maps of a miscellaneous classification. In this room, all weather information is collected, coordinated by the RAF, and sent out by teletype to every responsible command. This is the weather section in the operations block at the Bomber Command. Here, the information gleaned from the weather stations is put together and correlated into weather maps. Accurate predictions must be made as to the direction and speed of the wind, downward and forward visibility, temperature, humidity, possible icing conditions, and probable atmospheric pressure at the bases, en route, and over the target. Upon the findings made in this room will depend whether or not there will be an American bombing of a German target tomorrow. This is the operations room of the Bomber Command. Here is where the wheels are put in motion for any American bombing attack. Right now, the officers you see are waiting for the commanding general's morning conference. They are the A3, or operations officer, the operational intelligence officer, a weather officer, and other members of the staff.
What's the weather prospects today, Major?
It looks like most of Germany will be pretty good, sir. But we have a warm front approaching from down here, which we do not expect to affect the bases until late in the evening.
How's the weather at Anklam?
At Anklam, sir, we expect 2 to 5 tenths of low cloud and small amounts of middle and high cloud above 18,000 feet. Visibility 6 to 8 miles.
How about Marienburg?
At Marienburg, 2 to 4 tenths of low cloud, little or no middle or high cloud, visibility 6 to 8 miles.
What will it be at Danzig and Gdynia?
At Danzig and Gdynia, sir, 2 to 5 tenths of low cloud, 2 to 4 tenths of high cloud above 23,000 feet. Visibility in there about 5 miles, sir.
Give me the map of Anklam and the picture of the aircraft factory there.
Yes, sir.
All right, Marienburg, the Focke-Wulf factory.
Yes, sir.
We will attack Marienburg with 2 combat wings, Anklam with 2 combat wings, shipyards of Danzig with 2 combat wings, and the port facilities of Gdynia with 2 combat wings. That will require a maximum effort.
Now the various specialist officers then go into action. This is the operational intelligence section. Here are target files containing complete information as to the type, construction, and vulnerability of the targets. This data is gathered both from photo interpretation of aerial pictures and from confidential ground sources. On the basis of this information, the aiming point for the attack will be selected. The aiming point is a building or installation in the approximate center of the target. Here, operational research experts are minutely studying the architectural and construction details of the targets. It will be their duty to recommend, on the basis of studies previously made, the types of bombs and the proper fusing to accomplish the greatest possible destruction of the objective. These studies of the Arado factory at Anklam are immensely important, since the nose and tail fuses of a bomb can be adjusted to give varying degrees of delay between the time of initial impact and the explosion. For example, an improperly fused bomb would react something like this. Result, very superficial damage that may hardly even cause delay in production. On the other hand, here's what happens when a properly fused bomb strikes the same factory. 2 bombs of exactly identical weight and explosive power have totally different effects because one was fused properly and the other was not. It is the responsibility of the operational research section to determine proper bomb fusing. Here, the commanding general and the operations officer are working out the overall planning of each of the missions with the staff bombardier, the staff navigator, and the flak officer. This is a complex business because of the multiple nature of the attack.
We'll attack Anklam 1 hour before we attack the other targets. That should draw most of the German fighters on the Anklam force. The Anklam force is big enough to take care of itself.
You mean along the same course, sir?
No, send them a little south. They'll act as a better diversion.
This would be the best place across the coast from the standpoint of pilotage.
But, sir, the flak concentration at that point is quite heavy, the heaviest along the coast. We could rather move them a little further south, what the general suggests, and they would not run into flak difficulties at that point.
How is that for the navigation viewpoint?
Well, that's a very good landfall, sir.
All right, we'll cross at that point, and you adjust the flight times accordingly.
Take care of it, Darrell.
Yes.
While this is going on, the various liaison officers stationed at Bomber Command headquarters are busy keeping their respective commands acquainted with the course of events. The closest liaison is maintained with both the RAF Fighter and Bomber Commands, the Royal Navy, the 8th Fighter Command, and the 9th Bomber Command. It is through these liaison officers that requests will be made for the necessary fighter support, diversionary effort by the medium bombers, air-sea rescue patrols, and so on. Officers at Fighter Command immediately look up plan number 2340 to find out what part the fighters are expected to play in the next day's operations. Similarly, the 9th Air Force is informed that Bomber Command intends to lay on plan number 2340. It will be the duty of the mediums to attack enemy airfields at a time that will cause maximum interference with German attempts to intercept the heavy bombers. Right now, weather officers are getting ready their forecast for the General's late afternoon conference, where final decisions will be made.
Right in there as planned. Yeah, it should. Should be okay. Thanks. Good enough. Bye.
Does your morning's forecast still hold?
Yes, sir. There's practically no change in the situation, and we still expect the base weather to hold up for return.
Send out the field order exactly as planned.
Yes. Get me the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd divisions on a conference call, please.
All ready with your conference call. Go ahead, please.
Can you scramble? Okay. Over.
Okay, over.
Over. Okay, there's a mission tomorrow. Maximum effort with 5 task forces. The 1st task force, comprising 6 groups of the 1st Division, will hit 3948.
3948.
Secondary, 8731.
8731.
Last resort, 9009.
9009.
The 2nd task force, comprising 5 groups of the 3rd Division, will hit 6848.
6848.
Secondary, 6424.
6424.
Last resort, 5381.
5381.
The 3rd task force will comprise 4 groups of the 2nd Division, which will hit 6424.
6424.
Secondary, 5381.
5381.
Last resort, any industrial target of importance in Germany.
Okay.
The 1st and 3rd Divisions will each dispatch 1 air...
The field order now goes over the teletype to all interested units and command. The first step has been taken in the sequence of events that will finally result in bringing our planes over the targets and discharging their bomb loads. Command has conceived the mission and laid out general plans and routes. Division now plans in detail what command has ordered. The actual time of assembly of the various task forces is determined. The combat wings are assigned to their specific task forces, and the routes from assembly to rendezvous points and the target are charted. Many considerations go into the selection of the routes. Here is the commanding general of the 1st Division, which you will remember has 2 targets for tomorrow, Anklam and Gdynia.
Control point here at 0 hour. Another control point here for the northern unit, 0 plus 40 minutes. The other friendly...
From that timing, where will that put our northern force at the time that our southern force hits the IP?
The northern force should be about the east coast of Denmark at that time, sir.
It looks like we're going to catch all the fighters on the southern force, aren't we?
Looks very much that way, sir.
Well, I think we'd better bend that route around so it's headed towards Berlin. If we can pin those German fighters down in Berlin until we can get started home, they'll never catch us.
At the 2nd Division, the target for tomorrow is Danzig.
Danzig, eh? That's fine. How many ships will we have tomorrow?
Well, sir, if you recall, General, on our last mission we had heavy battle damage, and not all those aircraft are repaired yet.
Call up the wing commanders and have them put pressure on the groups to get their maintenance crews to work on these ships tonight and get every possible airplane on the line in the morning.
The 3rd Division, which will have for its targets Marienburg and Gdynia.
Looks pretty good, sir. We're going to be right over a lake there for a good checkpoint to turn. We're going in against the sun. The sun will be at our back, sir.
Defenses at the target. Major Frost, what about the flag defenses?
Sir, the upper target, there are 24 guns. That approach is good. The lower target isn't defended by heavy guns.
No heavy guns whatever at Marienburg.
None, sir.
The division's operations officer bases his precise plans on aircraft and crews available at the various groups. He then calls the combat wings to give them advance information before the field order actually arrives.
Operator, give me combat wings for the conference, please. Okay. Scramble. Over.
Okay.
Over. Over. For tomorrow, 1st Bomb Division will be called on for 2 task forces. 1st task force will be made up of 2 combat wings On targets 3948.
3948.
8731.
8731.
Last resort 9009.
9009.
Lead group in this task force.
Okay, ready to scramble? Over.
Okay. Over.
There'll be a mission tomorrow, and I want 2 groups from each combat wing. The target will be primary 6424.
6424.
Secondary 5381.
5381.
The last resort will be any industrial target of importance in Germany.
Okay.
There's an order coming through. The 3rd Division will furnish 8 groups. 1st and 2nd wings, comprising the 2nd Task Force, will hit 6848.
6848.
Secondary 6424.
6424.
Last resort 5381.
5381.
Last resort. Bomb load. 500-pound GPs fused, 1/10 nose, 1/100 tail.
1/10 nose, 1/100 tail.
This is operations of the combat wing, a purely tactical unit having absolutely no administrative functions whatsoever.
How do you intend to make it?
Sir, we'll assemble over Molesworth.
Problems of takeoff and assembly are the particular specialized function of this organization. It is the primary business of the combat wing to get the airplanes of its group into the air at the proper times and to get them assembled once in the air.
Field order requires that we provide the 2nd Combat Wing and the 2nd Air Task Force. 89th Group will lead, 81st Group will be high, and 63rd Group will be low.
That means that Colonel Whitten will lead the combat wing on this mission?
That'll be fine.
The Bomber Command has asked for a maximum effort. That means every available plane is to be gotten into the air.
Ramsey, this field order has called for 3,100 gallons for the H's due to the distance. Now, they've called for maximum bomb load. How about that for the weight?
I think we'd better put 8 bombs in the H's and 12 in the D's. That keeps us around 65,000 pounds.
How about the CG?
CG is well forward, and I think it'll work out very well because we've been down low for a long period of time.
All right, we'll have 8 in the H's and maximum in the D's.
Most of the groups are going further than an American bomber has gone before. Combat wings must work out precisely the maximum bomb load in relation to the required gas load. Decisions made in this and other matters are added to the division's field order and passed on to the groups, the ultimate tactical unit, to the men who get the planes in the air and fly the mission. On the basis of the alert telephoned down to the group by the combat wing, the various agencies necessary to get the planes airborne on their mission wheel into action. In the British Isles, there are the Allied Air Forces. On the European continent, we have Regensburg, Marienburg, Bremen, Oschersleben, Warnemünde, and Kassel. These are the major German fighter assembly plants, and as such are actually the center of Germany's industrial defense line. However, these are only the places where the aircraft is assembled into the finished fighting machine. Component parts for German fighters are made at Anklam. Here's a real line in this battle of Germany. Not a geographical front, but an industrial one. In the British Isles, there are the Allied Air Forces. On the European continent, we have Regensburg, Marienburg, Bremen, Oschersleben, Warnemünde, and Kassel. These are the major German fighter assembly plants, and as such are actually the center of Germany's industrial defense line. However, these are only the places where the aircraft is assembled into the finished fighting machine. Component parts for German fighters are made at Anklam. The Weser Flugzeugbau works at Bremen. The great Hedderheim propeller works near Frankfurt. The aircraft tire factory at Hanover. The CAM ball bearing plant at Paris, and the ball bearing factories at Schweinfurt. Obviously, an assembly plant can't operate if other plants aren't building the parts from which the enemy planes will be assembled. Hulse produced 29% of all German synthetic rubber production and is in fact responsible for 18% of her entire supply of rubber, natural or synthetic. At Bochum, there's a great steel plant producing high-grade aviation steel. Herøya, up in Norway, is a great producer of aluminum and magnesium, metals which figure importantly in aircraft production. At Ham, there are great railroad marshalling yards, having a capacity of 10,000 freight cars a day. Much of the tonnage handled here is closely connected with the manufacture, assembly, maintenance. Outside that target has failed to achieve its purpose. The assembly of fighters in this Focke-Wulf factory has come to a sudden and violent end. To many, the bombing of Germany probably seems to be little more than a series of capricious adventures, one attack unconnected in any way with the one that preceded it or the one that will follow it. It is easy for the average citizen to envision the positions of ground armies because of maps like these, which make the positions of the contesting forces quite clear. It is harder to express so graphically the progress of a bombing program. Yet there is a real line in this battle of Germany, not a geographical front, but an industrial one. Almost 3 miles below this formation of American flying fortresses, there lies Marienburg in East Prussia. Up to this moment, one of the most important cogs in Germany's war machine. The specific target on which this lead bombardier is lining up his bomb sight is the Focke-Wulf 190 plant. Up to this instant, this aircraft factory has been accounting for almost 50% of Germany's total FW-190 fighter assembly.
Bombs away.
Tons of bombs rain down in a tight pattern of destruction. This, remember, is no area attack. It is an assault on one single target, and any bomb that falls